Good evening. I'm the Reverend Roy Stevens, and I'm with the United Riverside Congregational Church. I'd like to share with you some thoughts on this third Sunday of Lent. This is the third Sunday of Lent. We are now at the halfway point in the Lenten season. Holy Week, which begins on Palm Sunday and culminates with the Passion and Resurrection of Jesus, is coming quickly. In our readings today, we are presented with two contrasting yet complementing aspects to God's Word. In our reading from the book of Exodus, the Lord gave unto Moses and the people of Israel his 10 commandments to live by. Why do I say that these commandments were given for us to live by? For it is written in Exodus chapter 20, verse 6, "For showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments." God has specifically stated that those who love him and keep his commandments will be shown mercy. For in Exodus chapter 20 verses 4 and 5, God himself gave us the commandment, "Thou shalt not make any graven image." And in the very next text says, "Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them or serve them, for I am a jealous God." God has shown us in this passage that if a commandment is broken, then his wrath will be great. But if we uphold and obey his commandments, then God will show us his great mercy. We have all heard of the 10 Commandments, but do we really know what they are? There was a television show not too long ago on the History Channel called The 10 Commandments. I was surprised when theological scholars were not able to name all 10 of the commandments as stated in our readings from Exodus. Let us look briefly at the commandments given to Moses. Please note that the first 4 commandments pertain to our relationship with God, and the second 6 pertain to how we should treat each other. The commandments are as follows. 1. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. 2. Thou shalt not make any graven image. 3. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. 4. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 5. Honor thy father and thy mother. 6. Thou shalt not kill. 7. Thou shalt not commit adultery. 8. Thou shalt not steal. 9. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And 10. Thou shalt not covet that which is thy neighbor's. What have these commandments to do with us today? Didn't Jesus change the commandments that God handed down to Moses? The commandments as given to Moses are still valid today. Our legal system is based on these commandments. For example, stealing is a crime. Bearing false witness is called perjury. We all know that killing is a crime. You get the idea. Did Jesus change the commandments and hence do away with the law? I would say yes and no. You could ask why the confusing answer. How can it be both ways? But Jesus did both. It is written that Jesus said that I did not come to destroy what was written, but to fulfill the scriptures. Based on this, Jesus did not change the law. But it is also written that before faith was the law, and God was a strict disciplinarian. Hence the quote from Exodus chapter 20 verse 5, "I am a jealous God." This represents the law. It is also written that faith replaces the law, and the role of the strict disciplinarian was replaced by a merciful God. Jesus himself represents faith. Jesus speaks of mercy to those who are penitent of their sins. Based on this, Jesus did change the law. In our reading from the Gospel of St. John, it is Passover. Jesus goes to the temple and is incensed with the money changers and merchants selling oxen, doves, and changing of money. John tells us that Jesus tipped the tables and stopped the merchants from doing business. He said that you've turned my Father's house into a marketplace. Jesus also said that he could raise the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. The people said, "How can you rebuild the temple in 3 days when it took 40 plus 6 years to build it?" Jesus was not talking about the temple itself. He was talking about the temple that is in each of us, in our spirits which are immortal. During the Transfiguration, Jesus told the disciples that he would die, and after 3 days be resurrected from the dead. It is for our spirits that Jesus said that the temple would be rebuilt in 3 days. For with the death and resurrection of Jesus, faith in what Jesus taught and showed, that the law has been modified by the redemption that Jesus' sacrifice on the cross for the forgiveness of our sins. It is in this way that Jesus changed the law. Not by abolishing the law, but replacing strict obedience of the law with faith in the good news of the gospel and the forgiveness of sins that only Jesus could provide us with. As I said earlier in this sermon, we are now at the halfway point of the season of Lent. Now is the time to prepare to celebrate the Passion of Jesus and the resurrection on Easter. Thus, God the Father has entered into a new covenant with us. When we became the children of God, it is through Jesus that entry to the kingdom of heaven is possible. Thank you for listening.